What's up, my friend? Welcome back to another video, and today we are taking a look at Dolce from Imperia in collaboration with Performance Samples. And so this library was highly awaited for a long time, and now it's finally out. And so basically, it's a romantic chamber strings library, excelling in more of the vibrato and more accentuated legato transitions sort of thing. But there's also a wider range of articulations to make it more of a full-fledged workhorse chamber strings library. So you can use it for more general purposes if that's kind of what you're going for. So let's take a look at the key features here, and then we'll dive into the library. First of all, we have 7 first violins, 5 second violins, 4 violas, 3 celli, and 3 double basses. So quite a small number, but maybe not quite as small as some other chamber strings libraries, but it's kind of in the middle of the road there. There's 4 mic positions and 2 ready-to-go mixes, classic and modern, and we have individual instrument sections and full ensembles, articulations of course, expressive legato, and approximately 80 gigabytes installed and made for the free Contact Player version 6.7.1 or higher. And it's basically built in their Pyramid engine. Again, collaboration with Performance Samples, and then they show you kind of the mic mixes, the different positions, and the different articulations that you can go through. So with that being said, let's kind of dive into the library. Big thanks to Audio Imperia, by the way, Yan, for sending me a copy. Really appreciate it to take a look at for you guys. So what we'll do is we'll actually go through some of the articulations first. I'll show you where it is here in my contact. So you can see right here, you just open it up and we have the different sections. So we have ensemble patches and we also have the individual sections. For the ensemble patches, we have them split out by different articulations. And for the individual sections, we have them like that as well. Second violins also have the energetic shorts and the frog staccato, which I believe are unique to at least this patch. The first violins also have the energetic shorts as well. I think the celli, they also have the energetic shorts there too. So second violins, I believe they have the frog staccato, and I believe it's the fast staccato that is unique to this patch or to this section. But anyway, what I'll do is go through these articulations first. I've pulled up 16 of them to fill in one contact instance. So we'll have a listen, and then after that, we'll go through the legato itself near to the end, and I'll show you a short cue as well using the legato patches as well. Okay, so let's kick things off with the violins one, and we're going to hear the sustains. This is what this sounds like. All right, so let's stop there for a second. So we went through quite a few articulations here already. The concertino and the harmonics, especially in the first violins here, sound amazing to me. They're really wispy, they're really soft, and it just has that really, really creamy tone. And also the room that they chose, I believe it's the same room as Pacific. It has sort of that nice resonant tone that really works well for strings, in my opinion. So I think it sounds really nice here. Now the shorts kind of have that pre-attack before the actual note hits a lot of the time. So I believe this is like performance source repetition sampling, where they they have the performers playing certain phrases and then they extract those notes from those phrases, which would kind of explain that pre-attack. In isolation, you can kind of hear that prominently, but in context, it might be a little more suitable if you have other stuff going on to hide that. And the energetic shorts do sound kind of similar to the spiccato, but they are quite short as well. To me, they have a little bit less of that tail or that attack at the beginning. And then the second violin staccato, a little bit longer than the spiccatos. And yes, it also has sort of that pre-attack at the beginning. And the fast staccato is a little bit more cleaned up. I think it's meant for, more faster purposes. And so if you want that, you can definitely use, the spiccato patch. That could definitely help shorten it up even further. But the fast staccato still does a decent job at playing fast passages. And then the frog staccato, which I believe is unique to the second violins, that's literally playing with a frog of the bow. So it's a little harsher, a little more nasal in a way, the sound. Quite unique and a really interesting addition to this library for sure. And then we just finished listening to the Mercado as well for the second violins. And the Mercado works very similar to Pacific, for example, where you play a note and the main feature is that it has this more accented attack at the beginning of the note. But in classical language, Mercado is usually a note that's relatively short. It's like da, and then it cuts off. Like it comes off and it stops. But in this library and Pacific, it basically holds for as long as you hold it until you let go of the keyboard of your MIDI controller. So that will allow you to play shorter notes and faster notes. In terms of the comparison between this one and Pacific, I feel like Pacific's Mercados are a little bit more responsive, and they actually act as staccatos and even staccatissimo a little bit more smoothly and more realistic compared to Dolce. I do think this library is primarily meant for the slower articulations anyway, so the Mercado is a great addition if you want to be able to hold for as long as you want, but you want that strong attack. But I wouldn't recommend using this patch for super short passages because the tail is just a little bit too long when it comes in, and I think the attack of the note is not quite as strong as the spiccato. It's like more immediate for the spiccato and the fast staccato, the frog staccato. You can hear it's really meant for those faster passages. Okay, let's move on to the violas, cellos, and the double bass, and then let's have a listen here to the pizzicato from the violas. All right. So this last patch here, the bend effects, that was the double basses only. I believe that that patch is not included in anywhere else. Like we don't get these effects here. So pretty interesting. And the one thing about this bend effects patch, as far as I know, is that you can't actually stop the sample early unless you like bounce it to audio and stuff. But I let go of the key after like triggering the note and the bend, but it basically continued on until the performance actually stopped. So that's something to keep in mind. But again, you can always just bounce it to audio and then chop off the tail if it's a little too long for you. But yeah, overall, the standout feature to me actually is the tone, like the room itself and the way the strings perform. The detail of the sound is just beautiful. I just love how the strings resonate in the hall, and it makes it sound very, very full and very rich. Speaking of which, let's actually maybe hear the classic mix a little bit. So we've been hearing the modern mix quite a lot. The classic mix in Audio Imperia style is generally a little bit less processed. It's more natural, out of the box. It's less hyped. So this is what the pizzicatos would sound like here in the cellos. Right, so that's the idea there. That's the classic mix. If we compare it to the modern mix, right, it's definitely louder, but it definitely sounds brighter, a little bit more polished as well, more like modern trailer style, if you will. They always use like brighter, emphatic sort of sounds. And so the processing feels kind of similar to me. Okay, and then we also have ensemble patches with all the different articulations. Let me just play the spiccato patch, for example, and then we'll move to the legato. All right, let's move on to the legato patches. So as you might expect, the legato is in its own dedicated patch, as you probably already saw. So we have first violins legato, seconds, violas, cellos, and the basses. And just keep in mind, at the moment, there are no multi patches, so you can't actually key switch between the different articulations as far as I'm aware. They're all single patches, and that's kind of the method they went with this library. For me, it's no big deal, but you know that might be something to consider if you're thinking about this library and you do like key switching. This library, as far as I know, it does not currently have that yet. Let's actually hear the legato. So I'm going to start with the violins 1, and we'll move down. So here we go. All right, so gorgeous tone. I really love how it sings in the room. I already mentioned that. One of the biggest talking points of this library when the walkthrough first came out, especially, was that legato sounded a little bit bumpy. And so Audio Imperia kind of took that to heart. They released an update, and this update is actually what we're going through in this video. Yeah, so there are basically two methods of using the legato in this library. The first was what we demonstrated in the first half of this legato demonstration, was just playing the notes overlapping, but without the sustain pedal. And I was talking to Yan, and he actually recommends using the sustain pedal at all times when using the legato in this library. So the second half, I was actually putting down pressing down the sustain pedal, and to me, the legato does sound a lot smoother. So that's something to keep in mind. Other string libraries will not require you to press the pedal unless you want to re-trigger the same note, like you want to rebow the same note. But for this library, it's recommended that you actually press the pedal the whole time. Just a little bit of trivia there, just so you know, but that is something to keep in mind. Now, that being said, the transitions are a little bit more prominent still. They are a little bit bumpy, at least to my ears. So I am looking forward to seeing, how this sounds a little bit more in context. Like if you have a fuller arrangement, especially if you layer with other libraries like CSS or Berlin or whatever, the string libraries will complement each other really well, and the legato transitions probably won't be as prominent. But still a lot smoother than the first versions I heard. Let's go to the violins too. Here we go. And from now on, I'll actually press the pedal down for all of these as well. So. All right, there we go. That's the legato patches. And so, I do think it's not quite as smooth as CSS, for example, because that's kind of like the standard buttery smooth legato that you hear in a lot of mockups. But this library actually, I think, complements CSS very well, because sometimes, believe it or not, I actually feel the CSS legato is a bit too buttery, like too smooth. And so with a little bit of the transition, not bumps, but they're a little bit more obvious in this library in some of the transitions, I think it could actually complement it pretty well, because it adds a little bit of that bow change sound to the legato transition. So if I layered, a Dolce legato cello with a CSS cello patch, I've already tried this, but it sounds pretty convincing actually, and it widens and thickens up the section even more. So it's really cool. But all that being said, let's have a quick listen to the little cue here. So I'm gonna make sure these are all playing. All right, so here we go. Okay, there we go. So one of my favorite things about this library actually is that the fact that there's so many dynamic layers. So when you turn the mod wheel all the way down, it actually feels like they're performing, quiet, like PMP layers. When you go up, you really hear the vibrato start to come in more intensely, and it just sings through the hall. So it's really nice. In this little demonstration, I did want to try to activate both the quiet and the louder dynamic layers. So you heard that little swell there. And this library actually evokes that sort of intense swell really well to me. Like I just wrote out the module and I could really feel the performer starting to dig into their bow more and more, activate more of that vibrato, and it just came through and sang really realistically to my ears. And then at the very end, I just tried to, bring it down all the way to the very bottom and round things out. So I tried to give it some dynamics as well. Let's have one more listen to this. All right. I'm also showing the sustain pedal part here. So this is something that I realized when I was basically starting a new phrase. I had to make sure the pedal was pressed down after the initial attack of the note, because if I pressed it before, then it basically catches whatever previous note I played prior to this note, even though it's not written as a MIDI note. Sometimes it would go like da-da or da-da, like whatever note I played previously to the recording. So I made sure there was no pedal here, so it wouldn't press down any notes. And then after this note was pressed, then I press down the pedal, and then, for the rest of the phrase. Now, if you take a breath, then naturally you have to release the pedal, because the pedal also sustains the note, even if you lift up your fingers. So wherever I wanted the players to take a breath or the music to take a breath, I then cut off the sustain pedal just before that note ended, and then put it back down, either right as the note hit or ideally right after it's played. And that's it. So hopefully that makes sense. That's a little look at the library. Thanks again for watching. Really appreciate it. If you're interested in my full sample library recommendations list and you're kind of starting out in your journey, or you've been doing this for a while and you want to upgrade your sample library collection, then I would love to give you that guide absolutely free. You can click the first link at the box below to grab it, and you can download it as my thank you for watching this video today. I really appreciate it. I'll catch you in the next video, and take care. Bye-bye.